Alright, well hey everybody, welcome to Unboxing Bergman with Nathan.
And me, Chris.
And this is we are in the midst of opening night. This is the curated order of the Ingmar Bergman Cinema. This huge, beautiful box set right here. But we're in the middle of opening night, so this is the Criterion Collection's curated order. And so today we're talking about the next three films in that particular order. We're talking about Wild Strawberries, which I have an individual release right here.
Yummy.
One of Bergman's my favorite films from Bergman.
Whoa, okay.
And then we have To Joy, and then we also have Summer Interlude. So those are the movies we're going to be talking about today. We're just going to kind of just go over what we thought about the film, a little bit about the plot without going into detail, and just overall whether or not you should check this movie out.
Right.
All right, so you want to talk about the first?
Yeah, so you've seen this movie before, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Before I even got the Bergman set, I got Wild Strawberries.
Yeah, well, I didn't. So I just knew that it was one of his most well-renowned films. It came out in 1957, which was the same time as The Seventh Seal, which is another one of his best. And that's the one I've seen.
Yeah. This is like the renaissance of Bergman, like when he started off getting really, really big.
Uh-huh. And before I get into the movie, I just wanted to say, I really love how this is an opening night. Like, it has one of his best already in the opening night sequence. And I think if you've been able to watch the first three movies and get to this, then you'll be rejuvenated to keep watching more.
Yeah, it's kind of like how Smiles of a Summer Night was to kick off this entire thing. It was just a really nice, perfect kind of Bergman movie. And honestly, with To Joy, or with Ship to India and Crisis, you kind of slump down a little bit, and now with this one, you get way back up. You shoot up to the top. I think it's probably the best of all 9 of the movies the opening night. Chris hasn't seen the last 3 though yet, not exactly yet, but this is one of the most iconic ones, as Chris is saying.
Yeah, and so a little background on it. The Victor Stromsholm.
Yeah, he's the director of the Phantom Carriage,
which Bergman was very influenced by.
Back in 1925.
Mm-hmm. Which has a Criterion release too.
I know, I can't wait to get that one. We're going to have to get it for February.
Right.
Maybe in the sale.
But this was actually his final film with Bergman. Well, he said he was going to retire, but I think when you watch the supplements, he even goes and says, I came back for Bergman. And the script, he begged me. He actually said no on it first. He's like, I'm retired. But he saw that Bergman was so persistent in having him in this movie, and he read the script.
He more or less made that part for him.
Yeah. He said, I had Victor in mind, and I wasn't taking no for an answer. And he took it. And I couldn't see anybody else.
I couldn't see anybody else doing it either.
And that's what I like about this Bergman set that's really kind of been implemented in your head, is like, Bergman works with the same actors again and again, and even though they're different roles...
A lot of them theater actors, too.
Yeah, they kind of... You feel like, oh, I know him. I know that actor or that actress, and it makes you like the movie a little bit more, because you kind of feel like you're going on this journey with all of them.
Yeah,
and that's what this movie really is, too.
And he plays Professor Isaac in this film, and this is such an iconic Bergman character, and this one, just like when we were talking about with Crisis, or no, Ship to India, it felt very personal for him. And this is one of those movies that you have this professor who has been in academia for all of his life, and he's kind of ignored his family, and in pursuit of knowledge and prestige, and is really excited to get this honorary award that he's about to go drive to, along with his niece.
Yeah, well, it's his daughter-in-law, Mary Ann.
Is it B.B. Anderson who's playing that?
Yep, B.B. Anderson.
I believe so. And it's just this road trip movie.
Kind of, yeah. You say that. It is pretty much like a road trip. So he's in Stockholm to Lund, and he's going to Lund, where it's from. I don't know where in Sweden that is. But he apparently was supposed to fly Dr. Isaac Borg, but instead he decides to drive because the night before he's going, he has a nightmare about his death. And it's actually a very terrifying dream sequence. And
that's actually a really good... I know for a fact that was an homage to the Phantom Carriage, which is...
Because the carriage wagon...
Yes, it was a nod to Victor himself. So that's just... It was a really, really great and psychotic sequence.
It really is pretty terrifying. And the thing I like about it is it really hooks you up. Hooks you like the beginning of the film, and there's like a monologue of Dr. Borg talking about his life and like what he is, and he actually has a maid, but she's the same age as him, and they're almost like a married couple, which I really love. So she's an integral character already that you get introduced to. And then Marianne, his daughter-in-law, you can already feel tension as soon as they start talking to each other. They're quippy, they attack each other in very sophisticated conversation. He lives in this very lavish home, drives a very nice car, and like again with the maid, they're like the typical old couple that like to like poke fun of each other, and she'll call him like snobby, and he's like, well, I'm snobby, but you have to take care of me and stuff like that. And so he gets on this car, and he's actually going to drive himself. And the first stop they make, Marianne and him, are at the place where he grew up. And that's really where the adventure really starts.
Yeah, it kind of delves into, and by the way, I was just looking up, it wasn't Bibi Andersson who played, she's one of the hitchhikers, but she's in that movie.
Yeah.
But with Victor's character, Professor Isaac, you see that background. He has, glimpses from his past, when he was in his youth, and his love for his old cousin, that he fell in love with her, but like she went with another cousin as well, which is interesting because that family dynamic is weird to us.
Yeah.
But I think
recurring thing though in those movies lately though.
Yeah, there's that relationship aspect of something that he could have potentially had been instead of what he ended up with, and so he's kind of reminiscing about that loss, and it's very poetic.
It is. I'm very surprised in the beginning act. It really shows his existential crisis of like what my life has been and like where it's going. And he right off the bat he starts off to the place that's most close to his heart, which is it was like a summer home.
It's like a summer home
that he grew up in with his brothers and sisters and cousins. And the one that he had loved, her name was Sarah. He actually falls asleep and just reminisces about it, and it's kind of heartbreaking in a way. And you kind of feel for him, even though he's this really grouchy, senile guy. Yeah,
and just as that's happening, Marianne, his daughter-in-law, they never really got along. It's very obvious at the very, very beginning how he asks her about, like, why have you never really cared for me?
Yep.
And he's like, well, it's because you're selfish and you don't pay attention to your family, and you don't care about your son as much.
Yeah.
And
he's
so
shocked by that too.
And he's shocked, like, I don't.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, you don't. And but that really brings up those questions that Isaac's having in his head. Is like, well, maybe I haven't really been there for these people. And he built a special bond with Marianne, his daughter-in-law, throughout this trip.
She really calls him out, and I love it. Marianne calls him Dr. Borg out by saying, you try to disguise yourself as this very simple, good-intentioned old man that can't be trifled with because of his age. But she knows he's being very sinister in his way he talks to people and treats people, especially throughout his life, which I really think brings more of his character to light, because he really plays it off to the audience that he's this simple man who's like, I'm just old and I'm afraid what's going to happen in my life. But now we're really starting to figure out what kind of person he was piece by piece because of her.
And it's that interesting dynamic what really drives this character piece, and this idea of, obviously we talked about relationships, and that's what a lot of this opening night bit is about just familial relationships and love and young love and old love and all that. But with this one in particular, there's other characters, like I said, we said Bibi Andersson, there's hitchhikers that they pick up.
Let's talk about them,
those hitchhikers are really unique to the time period, I think.
Yeah, it's two guys and a girl, which probably is very looked down upon.
Oh, yeah. It's definitely looked down upon. And also, this is like kind of at the time where, obviously, hitchhikers weren't as cautious as they are now. Because obviously, some people, like murderers and things like that, have ruined this. But for the most part, like, people were just, like, trying to help each other out. Like, oh, you need to get to this one spot? Come on in.
Yep.
Like, I'll take you there.
But Isaac just picks him up. He's like, yeah, just come with us. And he has this car, and he actually sees a little bit of himself in all three of them. Basically how he was growing up, very free-spirited and moving on an adventure. And actually, after that, they pick up some more hitchhikers. Well, they don't.
They get in a car accident, and that car accident is really, really crazy. It's because of they were more or less saying the woman was driving.
Yeah.
This husband who's abusive, and they always just bicker back and forth.
Yeah.
It's short-lived. That whole.
Yeah, I think Marianne really felt uncomfortable with that because she sees some of her marriage in that couple, and I think Borg also sees a little bit of himself from that man, which is interesting because he's picking up these people and he's seeing a little bit of his own life in them, and simultaneously he's like conversing with them and giving them advice, and eventually the teenagers who he picks up, they call him Uncle Borg now, and he's like part of their family in a short amount of period.
Yeah, and those initial ones who got in that car accident, they were kicked out fairly early because they were so bitter with each other, and it kind of was rubbing both Marianne and Isaac the wrong way, because he's like, you can tell that the youths, the three young people, were getting uncomfortable with all of this, and they're like, well, this is just making it really awkward. We were having such a good time, and like now it's like really awkward. It's like, get out, like, get out of here, like you caused this accident. And so it's just really interesting to see all those different dynamics at work.
But I mean, fast forward. I mean, he gets eventually to a spot, but he also learns about. Well, we talk about his son, because Marianne's married to him, obviously, and he's not present at all during most of the movie. And then Bergman really puts Bergman and his son's relationship into a microscope, and I like that because I feel like Bergman is trying to tell the audience something about his life, because it feels like a little more than just storytelling between the relationship between Isaac and his son. And his son is just like him in the making, very cold and very intelligent, doesn't have really much regard for how people feel emotionally and stuff like that. He's just a very gold, eccentric person. So I feel like Bergman was trying to tell the audience something about that, which I really enjoyed. And I think that's really all for the story. I don't want to spoil too much. I know. Yeah.
But it just like Smiles of a Summer Night, it ends in like a really, really nice way. Yeah. And it kind of comes full circle. And that's what's so refreshing about this movie. And just like, the title suggests, every time I envision the title of Wild Strawberries, I think of something fresh, new, spring. I think of things of a renewal. Something just... That's how I envision this movie, and it's one of those movies of, it's a renewal for Isaac Borg. It's a renewal for this character, who has been living his life the way he has without regard for other people, and it really shows.
Yeah. To me, this movie just really is about looking back at your past and remembering the places that made you happy, because, life isn't always satisfying. You can make life what you want it to be, but you're gonna have these things of regret and like sadness, and you see a lot of sadness in Isaac's life, and it really stays with him the rest of his life from his youth. And I think the audience, especially me, I've really connected well with like thinking back about my childhood and my teenage years and how that stuff maybe I don't think about it often. Maybe the person I am today, and I think there's that universal theme in there. But that's why I really enjoyed that, especially that scene where he's just laying down with the strawberries themselves. Yeah. I think that really is powerful, and it really just speaks volumes.
Yeah, it's an appealing film for everybody, and I honestly think if I ever wanted to introduce anyone into Bergman, this is probably the movie I would probably say go. This is the first movie to watch, because either that or Summer Smiles.
Yeah, 100%.
Those are the ones that I would say are just they're feel good movies. And
this movie just hits you though, really. Yeah. Especially that scene in the forest. There's some powerful stuff in this.
There's some really dark things in this movie too. But overall, I think this is one of Bergman's best movies, and so I'm glad that this is in the opening night.
Yeah, think that's in '57, and we had. I wrote down a few of the titles because I like to compare American cinema with Bergman. So you had Bridge on the River Kwai and 12 Angry Men coming out that same year. And then this comes out. How do you equate what? How do you rank that?
They're just so different.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
completely different.
But just like with Bridge and 12 Angry Men, they're all going for different things. And in this little part of Sweden, you get this character study of just what humanity can be, and that's another reason why I love 12 Angry Men. But I don't want to get into that. Yeah. So you want to move on to these
to Joy.
To Joy. All right. Well, To Joy is from 1950. It is the fifth movie in this lineup for the curated order. It is a film that I don't know if Cris really enjoyed as much.
I did enjoy To Joy as much as I wanted it to be. Maybe I wasn't in the right setting when watching it. It was like a lazy afternoon, but there wasn't a lot for me to like. And I'm not saying like this, like the characters I didn't like. Well, they're hard characters to like.
They're very hard characters to like.
But I don't knock that. I don't know. I just felt a little empty at points.
It's a really troubled young love, and one of them is built on selfishness. So really, without I should probably give a little bit of context here. So there's two violinists. One who is very reminiscent of Whiplash. Miles Teller's character.
Yeah, actually, I talk about that.
Who is very into himself and becoming a better version of what he wants to become. He wants to become like the chair violinist. He wants to be the head. Mm-hmm. He's looking for prestige. And Isaac Borg's character, Victor, is actually, this is prior to Wild Strawberries. So this is like 7 years prior to it. This is actually the first, and I think the only two films that he's in. Mm-hmm. So we have Victor's character, who is the head of the conductor, and then you also have what's her name?
Stig and Marta are the characters.
Marta is his newly
married.
I think they're newly married. Oh. But she's the one who's playing with Stig and is just looking for affection from him and actual love.
And Stig, the actor, he's also in Crisis. Mm-hmm. He plays Jack, the troubled gangster, and he shows up in a lot of these films as well. And this movie starts out just like most of the early Bergman movies, and what I mean, and that's why I kind of like that, is it's always showing the present and these characters looking back at a tragic event that led up to it.
Yeah, it starts off with someone died, and they're looking back at like how that all happened, how that all went down, and reminiscing like, well, maybe I should have acted in a different way, but the thing's already happened, and that's what you're seeing them relive that.
Now, To Joy is mostly a character study movie. I that's how I take it as. The story is very it's not a love story, it's about people in love, but one of them does not know how to show it, really.
One of them doesn't know, and they're, like I said with the Whiplash thing, they're more focused on themselves than they are the other person.
Yeah, and the other person just cannot let them go because they care too much about them. And basically, it's a movie that mazes a relationship. And
a really bad relationship.
Yeah.
That doesn't need to happen. But this is very realistic, because I've had relationships very much like this. Mm-hmm. Where, they could switch roles. Someone cares a little bit more about the other person.
Right. And I think what is interesting, usually it shows, like, from Bergman so far, it shows the consequences of a broken marriage from the child perspective. But in this movie, it shows the broken marriage from the actual other spouse's point of view. The kids are like a fueling point to stay together, but it's mostly about the couple, which is very interesting, I think. And obviously, you get really great set, which I think I really liked was the set pieces of
the music,
the orchestra.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of that's really well made and authentic. And I was like thinking, you don't see that in a lot of the movies of that time. It's just a full orchestra performing, and there's some really hard scenes in this movie with the two couples, with the couple just arguing a lot, but like there's this one confrontation scene. It's just so hard to see, and it's sad. It breaks your heart in a way, but that's definitely like the part where I was like, okay, I understand this movie and where it's going for. And it made the fact that a movie like that from 1950 can make you feel that kind of way in like I watched in 2018.
Yeah, I watched it in 2018 too.
That's powerful stuff.
Yeah, and like I was kind of alluding to, like this is a relationship movie that you've had. I mean, if multiple, I can't talk. So if you've had a relationship like this, whether you're on the end of the spectrum of like loving somebody who doesn't love you back, it's very realistic in that sense. And sometimes people can't let each other go, or one of them is a little bit more focused on something else, and it's just so realistic. And I honestly think this is very Bergman-esque because, like you were saying, it's very it's got a connection to him. Mm-hmm. Because he's been with a lot of people.
Yeah, it just feels like he might have had experience with this. It really does. And it seems like it's almost too intentional. like these bickering, these jabs at each other. I feel like, you know, it's obviously if you're in a relationship, you're gonna do that sometimes, and I feel like in this moment, with those moments in the film, I feel like maybe they're calling back to something he felt. I don't know, but I mean that was definitely like the high point of that film.
Sure.
For me.
Yeah, I'd say overall I'm in agreement with Chris. This isn't a movie that I would like highly recommend. Mm-hmm. It's definitely one of the ones that you can see is in Bergman's kind of transition into where he was into like Wild Strawberries and Persona and all those films. You know, it's just one of those films that I think is good if you like Bergman. Otherwise, I think you can pass on it. Yeah,
it's just one of those building blocks, honestly. Again, I think Crisis and Ship to India were better, personally.
Really? Okay, interesting. Yeah. All right, so I'd say this movie was like a 2.5 out of 5.
Yeah,
probably.
That's really accurate.
If we were going back, I think Wild Strawberries is a 5 out of 5. It's like a classic.
100%. That's a must-watch.
Yeah. Okay, so now we're moving on to...
Summer
Interlude. All right, so now we're moving on to Summer Interlude.
But it's winter still.
But it's winter. We just got a lot of snow here. Chris just saw this movie.
I did, and I actually really enjoyed it.
I also really enjoyed it a couple weeks ago, or last year.
Yeah.
I told you about it.
So it has the main actor from Ship to India, which made me very happy to see. I know he's also one of the reoccurring actors in Bergman's films, and the story is about a ballet dancer. I forget her name's Marie, I believe.
Yeah, her name's Marie.
And she is like I said,
Henrik is the guy you're talking about.
Yeah, Henrik is this boy that she fell in love with during the summer when in her youth. But the movie begins with her in a kind of a spotty relationship with this man, but it's because of her own doing. Well, the man's kind of sucks, but it's because of her attitude towards him.
On top of there's a death, just like in there's this theme. That's why they're paired together with To Joy, is because there's a death, and she's reminiscing about that summer she had with Henrik.
In a little bit of Wild Strawberry thrown in there with a character wanting to revisit a place of fond memory.
And this is 1951 when this came out.
So she goes back and she recounts her memory of a summer with this boy Henrik, who she fell in love with, and it just chronicles that while simultaneously showing her her visiting that place in the present time, and how it's during the fall, and so she's recalling that summertime and comparing the two, and I really enjoy that. I think it worked well, kind of showing like the past is old and forgotten and it's cold, where you reminisce all the sunshine and warmth. And
it's weird because that reminiscent stuff she's with the summer with Henrik is also bringing back a bad memory with her uncle.
Yeah,
her uncle who touched her, and you don't really get like the details, but you definitely he's kind of like a scummy, kind of dirty uncle. He always passed at her, and he is both in the past and the present. He is there when she's visiting in the fall.
Yeah,
and that's something that's kind of triggering to her.
And the thing is, it doesn't really bring that up very often. It's not right up there like you saw. Well, there's a confrontation scene,
especially when they're back at the family home, when he's the only one who's there.
But during the flashbacks, it really doesn't show that or talk about it. It's implied almost.
It's implied because he touches her leg, or makes a pass at her and things like that.
Once again, that whole Bergman family dynamic that I don't know why it's like that with a lot of his movies. Maybe it's of the time or the culture. I don't know, but it's definitely interesting. But first thing about Summer Interlude I want to say is that movie was shot tremendously well.
Oh, it was very cinematographic.
Yeah, I think it was probably my favorite. I think the most well shot from the opening night for me, besides Smiles of a Summer Night. Just there's so much water and like boats and like up close shots of the characters. I think it just shot so perfectly well, and it just I don't know.
It's a cinematic experience.
It really felt like an experience, like a youthful, like looking back at your youth at like a summer. Like we always talk about like that one summer, from the past.
This film, it feels like a breath of fresh air, but also Because it's a lot like Wild Strawberries in the sense that Cris was talking about. She's reminiscing about some good times and her bad times at her summer home with her uncle and that whole time with Henrik. But this reminiscing is really just delving into, like I said at the very, very beginning, there's that death, and she's thinking about all the times, like, well, maybe she should have did this one thing instead of this other, and and it kind of, we're not going to get into details, but it, just like with Wild Strawberries, it begins and ends in a very similar way, and there's something learned in between that I think is beautiful.
Yep.
And it all done in that ballet setting.
And the thing about Summer Interlude I really enjoy is, like most of these Bergman films, the ending always has a little bit of hope in it. The character always learns something and improves on it. And I loved seeing the comparison of Marie when she was younger and how hopeful and joyful and rambunctious she was, and then when you watch in the present, innocent, and then in the beginning, and then like in the present, she's very cold,
reserved.
And, she's very like. There's the theater director who says you can never find a trace of like drama with her or scandal. She's very much kept to herself, and I love how the film really explains that, like open, like very cut and dry. This is why she's like this now, and I think that was perfect the way Bergman said that, because it makes sense. And it's not too over the top. It's very, you can connect to that. You can understand why.
And that connection is based on her past, where you see that those connections with her uncle and with Henrik, and those connections, both good and bad, make somebody the hardened
aspect. Don't die.
That hardened aspect of that character, and you can completely understand why she's that way. And that's what's so interesting about her development, and it just comes full circle as a viewer. You see that experience, and it's really interesting. I think I've noticed so far with this opening night is there's a lot of reflection done with Bergman, and I honestly think that is really good for personal development.
Yeah.
And I honestly think this mirrors modern times. With just anybody in a personal life, relationships you may have with people that are bad, or on a bad note, or a sour one, or just things you can't let go. Maybe confront it a little bit, and reach out to that person, and maybe just see what at least you're willing to have a conversation about it. You're willing to let it go and not bother you as much, because you're trying to learn a lesson, trying to move on, but at the same time learn from that. Yeah. And I like that aspect of Bergman.
I feel like this movie, in the opening night sequence, at least when I was watching it, I was like, I already know what early Bergman stuff is, how it starts, what it's about, and it's a breath of fresh air to get kind of, it's a little bit of drama, but it's a very enjoyable movie. It's about love at the core. When you're watching like something like To Joy, like Ship to India, and like Crisis, watch those early stuff.
It's a little bit more manufactured.
Yeah, it's a little more undefined, but this movie's refined very well, and it's a little bit more of a hopeful story, which is a breath of fresh air. You can, like that progression we talked about in our first video, that progression of Bergman just building, and he really is. I know at the time he was like very dismissive of his early works and was very embarrassed by him.
I know he likes this one.
Yeah, but you can see his progression, and it really pays off. And I think that this movie it maybe isn't a must-watch for people who want to get into Bergman, but I think if you do watch it, I think you have a good time.
You'll have a very fun time with this one. I would give this one a 3.5 out of 5.
3.5?
Probably. Maybe a 4.
I give it a 4.
Yeah, even that.
I just am a sucker
super enjoyable.
I'm a sucker for the acting in the movie. Henrik's the actor that plays Henrik is so enjoyable, and the dynamic between him and Marie is so delightful, and it feels like an actual genuine relationship.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I love his like really short swim trunks. That's really funny. They're picking strawberries in this really sweet scene where they meet each other with his dog. He's like swimming, which is his passion, and that's a big theme. Is like they're always by the water.
Yeah, doing those nice summer things you do in Sweden, and I know I read a little bit about this, but like the geography in Sweden, and we'll talk about it next time a little bit with Summer with Monica, because it's very reminiscent of Summer Interlude.
Yeah.
That little vacation time, that little summer is very, like, it doesn't happen very long in Sweden because it's a Nordic country and it's mostly winter most of the time. So these little moments, these little like 8 weeks or whatever, the summer that they have is really precious and special.
Yeah.
And so that's what's so cool about this. It honestly does feel like the title suggests, you know, this nice interwoven, like this is just a little part of your life, this is a little slice.
Yeah.
And it's nice.
I mean, I was just thinking about this. Do you think that Summer Interlude could potentially be like maybe like a forefather to the summer fling romantic movies like that we see now? I can't think of any right now, but I know there's like some like I can't think of anything.
Dazed and Confused, American Graffiti.
Yeah, you know, like those summertime like love movies that are like kind of comical.
Call Me by Your Name.
Yeah.
That's
a really good comparison actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, that vibe I feel like is universally adopted in like movies we see today, which I really thought was genius on his part.
Yeah. So definitely check out Wild Strawberries. You can check out The Joy if you're into Bergman. You know, I think it's good. And then I'd say definitely check out Summer Interlude.
Yeah, for sure. I think I would. I don't know, Summer Interlude. Now that I think about it, it's knocking on Wild Strawberries' door. I don't know if it's like as well received. Well, it has 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, whatever that means to the viewers. But to me,
positive.
To me, that tells you like a lot of people really enjoy this movie. They give it the chance.
So that is the end of part 2 of opening night. We only have one more left of opening night. Next time we're going to tackle Summer with Monica. I kind of talked about a little bit earlier. Then we also have Dreams, and we also have A Lesson in Love, which is a pairing. And that'll finish out opening night, and we're excited to do it.
Yeah, it seriously feels like a film festival right now. Just like moving from one movie to the next and to the next and talking about them and, you know, analyzing them. But they're all really solid films.
Just realize we have like 33 left.
Yeah, we're still
so we have quite a bit. So we're doing this at 3 at a time. Obviously, it'll be a little different when we get to different centerpieces because there's not 9 specific. You know, there's not 9 specific 3s and stuff like that. We can talk about 2s and whatnot. I honestly think for centerpiece 1, we'll probably just do the 2 movies at the very beginning of those. But anyway, we're not getting into that yet.
Well, why am I in this video again? Aren't we rivals on YouTube?
Right? We're rivals on YouTube. By the way, Cris has a channel. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, I'm not doing Bergman anymore on that channel, if that's what you mean. But yeah, I have a channel. It's steadily moving towards more positive.
What's it called?
Hertastic Reviews with me. I'm a little more serious. I'm dialed down compared to what I am on this channel with Nathan.
But I'll put it down in the description down below. Check out Chris's channel. I mean, he's got quite a great collection of films he's talked about, and he's got really cool segments.
Oh,
so
thanks.
Yeah. So thank you very much for checking this little video out. Once again, we're excited to keep continuing on with unboxing Bergman.
Yeah.
All right. Any last words?
I just want to thank everyone who's been supporting like your channel, like my channel, just giving really great feedback. Seriously, it means a lot to us.
The community's big.
Yeah, when we're together at work, we talk about these things seriously and try to make these videos a lot better than we're trying to reach the potential I think you people are setting for us.
Yeah, we really want to make sure that this is quality for you and is worth your time. Absolutely. All right. Well, give this video a like, comment down below, share this video, comment down below, hit that notification bell, and we'll see you next time.
We're not jonesing around.